Hello again, folks, and a special thank you to all of you who have shared that you work on your stamp collections as you watch my videos. I really cherish our little community here on YouTube, and I hope you do too. Today's special presentation is for all of you, and it's a bit of an experiment, honestly. What I'm going to do is share a story that is stamp adjacent, shall we say, and my hope is you'll enjoy it as you look for a watermark or two, or sort through a pile of stamps. And so without further ado, I give you my first silk story. And happy collecting, friends. Why folks thought my brother was some sort of savant, I'll never know. I saw him eat his own earwax once. He is smart, though, I'll give him that. And like a good older sibling, he can spin a yarn so earnestly that you believe him and ignore me, no matter how tangled up in it I, too, had become. But a genius? Come on. I once saw him lick the business end of an 8-volt battery. Walk me through it, my father demanded. I have to understand. He then pinched the bridge of his nose, and I knew he'd really done it this time. You can't trifle with the universe as we had and expect to get through the experience unscathed, I suppose. It wasn't our fault, Dad, Johnny said. A cosmic ray collector created by a couple of kids? Come on, who could be so gullible? Is this true, Reverend? Demanded Mark, a First Presbyterian Church deacon, who was sitting across the table from us like Pontius Pilate himself, or like the giant toad we thought he looked like. Do you think your parishioners are gullible? His croak ended on a higher note than it began, and he lingered on each syllable as if they all held their own unique power to damn us. My father sighed. Step by step, boys, he told us. You go first, Nathaniel. Why now, for once, I thought. But I didn't complain, and I didn't say that my brother is an earwax-eating dolt, because I couldn't. We honor our brothers in my house, too, just in case. So instead, I told the truth. I went to the library a couple of weeks ago, I began. My mouth-breathing bully rode our school bus home, so I often didn't. Instead, I'd walk around downtown until it was time for Dad to leave work. I'd stroll the aisles of the dusty hobby shop, inspecting the model airplane kits I couldn't afford to buy, until the aging German owner would shoo me out, Austin! And I'd stroll over to the head shop on Willow Street to say hello to Justin, the stoner that manned its cash register, in my lowest, manliest voice. He'd give you $1 for a ginseng root, or $5 for a bag of old stamps. And so Johnny and I had spent hours in the ravine behind our house, digging in the dirt, dreaming of riches. But on this fateful afternoon, something had drawn me into the library. Maybe my love of James Bond novels, maybe not. When I walked in, a homeless man in the lobby was ruining a few librarians' days, along with their cherished silence. So I'd hustled upstairs and promptly got lost in the stacks of science books. I'd never been up there before, but all those big, glossy books seemed comforting somehow. So I grabbed a random one and began to read. It was called The Greatest Bang of Them All, I think, I said. The Greatest Bang of Them All, said Mr. Toadface. So named because one family movie night Johnny had yelled, Look, it's Deacon Mark! When the talking toad had made his first appearance. Gosh, how we all had laughed, even the preacher. Yes, the greatest bang of them all, I said. Well, I can tell you that I'm not getting a bang out of this story so far. I don't know what homeless men in libraries have to do with Sherry's injury. Oh, everything, my brother interrupted. Just think about it. If it wasn't for that bum, Nat would have waltzed into... That'll do, Johnny, our father said. Nathaniel, please continue, and perhaps the abridged version will do. But you said step by step, Dad, Johnny said. My father's glare shut him up for the moment, so I carried on. I don't know what it was about that book, but I couldn't put it down. It told me that our universe is still expanding. Into what, it didn't say. And since it's still expanding, some really smart folks began to realize that it must have once been really small. And being so small, it must have been really dense and really, really hot until it all exploded in one glorious burst of creation. Bang! Do you believe in this bang, Reverend? Said Mr. Toadface. Please, Mark, I've told you many times. You can call me Michael, or even Mike. I prefer to be called Deacon. I know. And God created the world in 7 days. 7 days, my brother erupted. 7 days? What about the dinosaurs or the mountains or the moon? And what about sandstone? Think about it. Stone made of millions of tiny bits of sand, hardened into rock over millions and millions of years in 7 days? We cannot begin to conceive of the awesome power of our Almighty Father, croaked the deacon. Apparently, we cannot conceive of our awesome That's enough, Johnny, my father roared. Let's return to the situation that gathered us here in the first place, growled the deacon. Yes, thank you, Mark. Now, boys, please, explain how Sherry came to have that jar of salt. I wailed. They might not want to hear about the bum and his tattered sneakers and stained t-shirt, but if it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. Johnny was right. I would have gone straight to the fiction section, flipped through a few paperbacks, and then strolled out with Goldfinger or Dr. No in hand, truly content. But instead, this malcontent had knocked me off my path, like one of those first protons had knocked an electron into a newly formed nucleus, causing a nuclear reaction that would ultimately lead to bums, paperback books, and croaking deacons. Why? Why had he chosen that moment in time to demand to use the bathroom in such a needy, yearning way that the elderly librarian felt compelled to call her supervisor instead of just handing him the godforsaken key? I could only wonder. You said from the beginning, Dad, Johnny interjected. Outside now, snapped our father, and Johnny flinched like he'd been struck by a switch. We rarely saw our dad this upset, but as Johnny slowly walked out of the room and Deacon Mark nodded approvingly, I began to understand. Mr. Toadface was judging the purity of the tree based on the fruit it produced, and I was in trouble. Now, Nathaniel, enlighten us, my father told me. So, behind our home was a ravine full of bur oaks and waterfalls, snakes, raccoons, and, we kept on hoping, the occasional ginseng root. On its bluffs we'd built what we called a treehouse, but really it was just a wooden platform made of old 2x6 boards that gave you splinters if you weren't careful, surrounded by what we called a railing so Mom wouldn't worry. She never knew it was so poorly secured into place that we didn't dare touch it. You got into the treehouse through a 2x4 ladder nailed into the maple tree, and through its escape hatch you could also use the bucket and rope we'd strung up to haul up books and flashlights, snacks, and occasionally sleeping bags and pillows. A few nights after my star-crest trek to the library, we'd decided to do a sleep out in the treehouse. So I'd found myself staring into the heavens, lost in the immensity of it all, my head poking out of my Garfield the Cat sleeping bag as Johnny lay on the one board we'd sanded down smooth, reading a comic book. It's all moving, I'd said. What? All those stars and all those galaxies moving through space at millions of miles per hour. They look pretty still to me, my brother said. Relatively speaking, I said, pleased with my own cleverness. Kind of like how you're my dork of a relative? No, not at all. What I mean is we're moving too. I know that, genius. The Earth spins, we orbit the sun. I paid attention to those cartoons too. Yeah, But we're also flying through space. All of us, the moon, the sun, the Milky Way galaxy, flying through space at millions of miles per hour. Huh. It's how they discovered the Big Bang. Damn, Nat, that's boring, he said, and he picked up his comic book again. No, it's not. It's really not. Get this. A long time ago, some scientists figured out that the universe was expanding. We're all flying through space. Yeah, I got that part. And since it's expanding, they figured out it must have all started off really small. The rocks, the trees, all of it was once really, really small. So it would have been dense, I think they called it. You're dense. And really, really hot, too, until one day it went boom. That's great. It's interesting. No, it's really not. Ah, come on, I'm fascinated. When those scientists really started thinking, they realized that if the Big Bang happened, radiation from it would still be floating around our universe to this day. And those cosmic rays would be hitting the Earth all the time. And maybe, just maybe, they could catch one or two of them to prove their theory. I stretched, put my hands behind my head, and imagined the afterglow of creation striking my forehead. Wait, what? Johnny asked. That's right. Fascinating, eh? They call them cosmic rays or something like that. And they found them. They actually found them. They're landing on us right now. No way, he said. I was pleased to see that I'd piqued Johnny's interest. But when I started to talk about the chaos of it all, and about how God fits into it, and the thousands of other questions that were stirring my soul, I could tell by the gleam in my brother's eyes that he was on a different plane entirely. I just had an idea, he'd said. So you see, Dad, I told my father, as Mr. Toadface squirmed a bit on his pad, clearly starting to grow restless. It was all my fault. But I still say that if it hadn't been for that homeless... We know, said the deacon. Go get your brother, Nathaniel, the preacher said. Johnny was sitting on the ground in the hallway outside of Dad's office, his chin on his knees. What's the verdict? He asked. Don't know, but they want you back now. I stuck out my hand, and Johnny took it. Then he leaned into me as he stood up. Look, he said, I'm sorry. It was the first and only time he ever apologized to me, and I knew he meant it. Just like I knew our bond was special, even when it didn't feel like it. No sweat, I said. So you decided to capture cosmic rays, my father said as we entered. Yep, Johnny answered. And then sell them to people at church. Yes. So you made a cosmic ray collector. Well, no. Come on, Reverend, interjected Deacon Mark. You know full well it was just salt mixed with food coloring. Thank you, Mark, my dad said, but I would like to hear the story from my boys, if you don't mind. It looked like the deacon was going to puff up his chest once more, but he seemed to second-guess himself, and instead settled back into his chair. For some reason I thought about my mouth-breathing bully back at school. Maybe all of this started not with the bum at the library, but with my decision to avoid the bum on the school bus. That's right, Dad. I did it, my brother admitted. But it wasn't salt and food coloring. We tried that. It didn't work. It was decorating sugar from Mom's baking drawer. So it would look ethereal, my dad said. I'm sure. But look, we'll apologize. She bought it, though, you know, and it was just sugar. Johnny, do you know what happens when you ingest sugar? Asked the deacon. I eat a lot of sugar. Mark, we don't need to my father interrupted. No, Reverend, I think we do. Your boys still seem to think this is some sort of joke. They need to understand the extent of Sherry's injury. Her injury? How did she get injured by sugar? Well, began Mark, since you children had convinced her that it was, what did you call it? The afterglow of God's creation, I admitted, my face beginning to redden. The afterglow of God's creation! Well, Sherry decided that she wanted this after stuff as close to her as she could possibly get it, the poor thing. And so she inhaled it through her nose, boys. my father said. Before either of us could respond, Deacon Mark blurted out, "That's right! And do you know what happens when you inhale sugar? You sneeze?" Johnny, the effervescent twit, said. "No! Apparently you end up in urgent care, and you're left with a horrible memory that you've somehow got to make sense of." We then sat in what felt like an eternal silence, me stunned by Deacon Mark's revelation, and Johnny clearly trying to stifle a giggle that would surely be the final nail in both our coffins. It was impossible, however, to read the look on my father's face. "Well," he said finally, "I think we've gotten to the bottom of what happened here." "And what happens next?" Mark demanded. "Johnny has offered to apologize to Sherry, which I'm sure he will. And I will look forward to seeing you next Sunday in church," the preacher said. The deacon twitched, started to sit up taller in his chair, but then slumped back down again, and he sighed. "Well, I'd at least like to know what you think about this bang." "Perhaps I'll do a sermon on it someday," my father responded. And with that, Deacon Mark had clearly had enough. He damn near hopped out of his chair, shot Johnny and I a glare, and stormed out of the room. Johnny and I held our breath, waiting for Dad to break the silence. "A cosmic ray collector," he finally said, with a shake of his head, and neither of us knew if we were in trouble or not. Thank you all for joining me for a silk story. If you enjoyed it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. It means a great deal. Until next time, happy collecting, friends.